The Coleman family seemed like a dream. They lived in a picturesque suburb, complete with white picket fences and manicured lawns. Father, mother, and 2 children. The perfect American family. John Coleman was a successful businessman. His wife, Mary, was a pillar of the community. She volunteered at the local school and was always the first to offer help to those in need. Their children, Emily and Michael, excelled in school and sports. Neighbors often spoke of the Colemans with admiration. They were the embodiment of happiness and prosperity. However, behind closed doors, things were not as they seemed. The perfect family was hiding dark secrets, secrets that would soon come to light. The veneer of their perfect life was about to crack in the most tragic way possible. It was a stormy night when the tragedy struck. The wind howled, and rain pelted the windows of the Coleman house. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. An argument had erupted between John and Mary, louder and more vicious than ever before. The children cowered in their rooms, frightened by the escalating voices. Suddenly, there was a deafening silence. Emily and Michael crept out of their rooms, and what they found would haunt them forever. Their mother lay motionless on the floor, a pool of blood spreading around her. John stood over her, a look of horror and disbelief on his face. The police arrived quickly, alerted by a frantic 911 call. The perfect family was now the center of a horrific crime scene. John was taken into custody, while the children were placed in the care of relatives. As the investigation began, the police uncovered a web of lies and deceit. John and Mary's marriage was far from perfect. Infidelity had played a significant role in their deteriorating relationship. John had been involved with another woman for months, perhaps even longer. Mary had found out, and the confrontation on that fateful night was the culmination of months of tension. Financial records revealed that John had been embezzling money from his company. The once successful businessman was on the brink of financial ruin. The pressures of maintaining their lavish lifestyle had taken its toll. Mary had been unaware of the full extent of their financial troubles, adding another layer of betrayal to the tragedy. Friends and family were interviewed, painting a picture of a marriage in turmoil. Mary had confided in close friends about her suspicions and fears. The perfect family image had been a desperate attempt to hold on to a life that was crumbling from within. The community was in shock. The police worked tirelessly to piece together the events of that night. Forensic teams scoured the Coleman house for evidence. Blood spatter analysis, fingerprints, and DNA samples were collected. Every detail was scrutinized to build a clear picture of what had transpired. John maintained his innocence, claiming that Mary's death was a tragic accident. He asserted that during their argument, Mary had fallen and hit her head. However, the evidence painted a different picture. The injuries Mary sustained were inconsistent with a simple fall. The autopsy revealed multiple blunt force trauma, indicating a violent struggle. Interviews with friends, family, and neighbors shed light on the troubled marriage. The financial records provided a motive, and the affair suggested a reason for the escalating tension between John and Mary. The police built a case against John, but it was not without its challenges. As the investigation progressed, unexpected twists emerged. An anonymous tip led the police to a potential accomplice. John's mistress, Jessica, became a person of interest. Her alibi was shaky, and her connection to John added a new layer to the case. Was it possible that she had been involved in Mary's death? Jessica was brought in for questioning. She denied any involvement, claiming she had no knowledge of John's plans. However, further investigation revealed inconsistencies in her story. Phone records showed multiple calls between her and John on the night of the murder. Bank transactions indicated large sums of money being transferred to her account. The plot thickened. Was Jessica merely a pawn in John's scheme, or was she an active participant? The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. The police had to tread carefully, ensuring they built a solid case without jumping to conclusions. The once clear picture of the tragedy was becoming increasingly murky. The sense of betrayal was palpable. Mary had trusted John despite their marital issues. She had believed in the facade they presented to the world. To find out that he had been unfaithful, that he had lied about their finances, and ultimately that he was responsible for her death, was a betrayal of the deepest kind. For the children, the betrayal was even more profound. They had lost their mother, and now their father was the prime suspect. Emily and Michael struggled to reconcile the loving father they knew with the monster the evidence suggested. Their world had been shattered, and the people they trusted most had let them down. The community, too, felt betrayed. They had welcomed the Colemans into their lives, admired their seemingly perfect family. Trust was broken, and the sense of safety and security was replaced with suspicion and fear. The community rallied around Emily and Michael, offering support and comfort. The courtroom was packed as the trial began. Media coverage was intense, with reporters and cameras capturing every moment. John Coleman sat in the defendant's chair, his face a mask of stoicism. The prosecution laid out their case with meticulous detail, presenting the evidence of infidelity, financial misconduct, and ultimately, murder. Witnesses took the stand, recounting the turmoil within the Coleman household. Friends and neighbors spoke of Mary's fears and suspicions. Forensic experts detailed the evidence, painting a picture of a violent struggle. The prosecution argued that the motive was clear. John's desperation to maintain his facade of perfection had driven him to murder. The defense, however, painted a different picture. They argued that Mary's death was a tragic accident, the result of a heated argument gone wrong. The jury deliberated for days, weighing the evidence and testimonies. The trial had exposed the darkest aspects of the Coleman family's life, and now it was time to decide whether John was guilty of murder or if Mary's death had been a tragic accident. The case of the Coleman family tragedy offered deep psychological insights into the mind of a criminal. John Coleman, the seemingly perfect husband and father, had a dark side that few had seen. His ability to maintain a facade while hiding his true nature was chilling. Psychologists and criminologists analyzed his behavior, seeking to understand what drove him to such extremes. One theory suggested that John's need for control was a significant factor. His entire life was built around the image of perfection. When that image was threatened by financial troubles and infidelity, he lashed out in the most extreme way possible. The pressure to maintain appearances had pushed him to the brink of sanity. Another aspect was John's lack of empathy. His ability to deceive those closest to him, to lie and manipulate without remorse, pointed to narcissistic tendencies. The case also highlighted the psychological impact on the victims, particularly Emily and Michael. The trauma of losing their mother and discovering their father's role in her death was profound. The Coleman family tragedy left a lasting impact on the community. The sense of betrayal and shock was felt by everyone. Neighbors who had once admired the Colemans struggled to come to terms with the reality of what had happened. The perfect family they had known was a lie, and the truth was devastating. Community events took on a different tone. The annual neighborhood barbecue was subdued, with conversations often turning to the tragedy. The church services were filled with prayers for the Coleman children and for the soul of Mary. The once vibrant community was now marked by an undercurrent of sadness and mistrust. Schools and local organizations rallied to support Emily and Michael. Fundraisers were held to provide for their futures, and counseling services were made available to help them cope with their trauma. The community came together in a show of support, but the sense of loss and betrayal lingered. The tragedy also sparked conversations about mental health, domestic violence, and the importance of looking beyond appearances. The Coleman family tragedy forces us to reflect on the moral implications of such events. It is a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that even those who seem perfect can harbor dark secrets. It challenges us to consider the importance of honesty, integrity, and genuine connection in our lives. The case highlighted the destructive power of lies and deceit. John Coleman's web of lies ultimately led to the destruction of his family. The need to maintain a perfect image at the cost of truth and trust had devastating consequences. It reminds us that the foundation of any relationship, whether familial or communal, must be built on honesty and trust. The tragedy also underscores the importance of mental health awareness. John's actions were driven by deep psychological issues that went unaddressed. It is a call to action for better mental health support and intervention to prevent such tragedies from occurring in the future. The warning signs were there, but they were ignored or overlooked. Finally, the Coleman family tragedy impacts societal trust and safety.